Hello to all of my BPTV fans, YouTube fans, and new fans. We're at 319 South Trenton Avenue in Wilkinsburg for a by request show, and Jessica Lee suggested it. I'm Al Levine, the Talking Machine. Thank you for watching all of our by requests. Jess, what is this show about and how are you today?
Hey, Al, I'm great. We are sitting in a wonderful art gallery. You're going to hear a lot more about it. I had the chance, Al, to sing here very recently. I've never been here before.
I remember.
And with a brilliant pianist named Rick Gallagher. And we discovered this unbelievable creative space and creative entrepreneur, Charlie Patterson. Goes by Charles sometimes by Charlie.
Yes.
So we're going to hear a lot more about this wonderful space and the fusion of art, not only within the space. Charlie owns the whole building from end to end, road to road, and we'll
Yeah.
talk about how the art infuses into community too. So this is a special by request today.
Yes, I can't wait. But with no further ado, I brought my loose leaf green tea called the Talking Machine Green Tea, reddish color with hibiscus.
And I keep telling Al, don't drip it on this piece of artwork. This is one of Charlie's pieces of art. Isn't
It's
it
great.
beautiful?
And guess what? I'm drinking more.
Yeah. Yes.
And please enjoy this show. And we have some more to come.
To your health. I'd like to introduce Charlie Patterson, to you.
Hello.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Tell everybody where we are. What is the name of this space?
This is an art gallery, community-based, and it's called Undiscovered.
And it really truly is undiscovered. If you Google it, it's tough to find it, right?
Yes.
Give us the address.
319 South Trenton Avenue in Wilkinsburg.
Yep. So if you're familiar with Regent Square in Pittsburgh, it's right next to it. It's really a wonderful space. I'd never heard of it before, but I was singing at an event and I met Charlie, and we came and we did some music with the beautiful pianist Rick Gallagher, and discovered not only the great space, but a lot of things we're going to discover about Charlie and how he connects with bettering community as well as helping artists. So we're going to start with Charlie's art, which is behind us. So Charlie, tell us a little bit about the art that's on the wall, the art that's also in your book. Tell us about, when did you first start creating this art? What inspired you? And tell us a little bit about how you make it.
This art project I've been working with about 12 years, and I was inspired by flowers growing in my yard.
Yes.
I paint mostly with acrylics, some with watercolors, and I paint on a variety of different papers and canvases, depending on what mood I'm in. Do I want light to flow through the painting? So light is flowing through this painting. Light is flowing through this one. This was a solid canvas that I held behind this true forget-me-not.
Then I learned that Charlie puts poems and poetry. That's your original writing. Is that correct, Charlie,
Yes.
with some of your work? Talk about that, the poetry.
I went back to college when I was 36, and I already had two businesses, and I thought I'd take some business classes, and I didn't like the business classes, and I'd always written poetry, so I switched to creative writing and received a degree in poetry from the University of Pittsburgh.
didn't know that.
And I
Okay.
have been writing since, and the inspiration for the poetry with the flowers came from, as you said, the spiritual message that I feel comes between the combination of the painting, the combination of the flower, and that combination brings what I feel is a calming element that emanates from the paintings. I thought it was so interesting that I get them enlarged and put them on buildings.
Yes.
And try and take art out of the art gallery into the neighborhood.
into the community. So I'm going to ask our wonderful assistant today, Al Levine, the talking machine, to come on over here, Al, and grab one of these postcards that has Charlie's art on the front and a poem on the back, and just pick one and hand one to Charlie. Al is going to be uncharacteristically silent right now. Okay, he chose one. Would you mind telling us a little bit about this and reading the poem on the back?
Well, this was a canvas that I did, and I was experimenting with sparkles, and he picked this one, which it's not the same painting, but I added the sparkles to the painting. In this particular painting, I was surprised wonderfully by the reflections on the rose and the sparkles, how they matched. So none of these pieces of art are set up in any way. It's me and a small camera trying to hold the painting behind the flower and take a number of photographs. And this was in that, and I take the paintings out and use them in multiple times behind different flowers to see which painting brings out the energy of a particular flower.
And what's on the back there?
Patience melts all limitation and misunderstanding, guiding the directives of love on and on in a beautiful cascade of embrace, patient embrace.
Charlie, your poetry is off the charts to me. Beautiful. I studied poetry in college myself at Duke University and music. And I am such a fan. Thank you, Al, for choosing that, of the fusion, if you will,
Yes.
of the spoken word, the painting, the photography. So do you have your small camera to show people what you used? And let's just have you demonstrate, show us how you would take your painting and try to capture the light, the flower, the painting as the background.
I take the paintings and I wander through the woods. Wherever I go, if I see a flower growing that I haven't seen before, I stop and try and get out and take some pictures. So if I find the flower that is growing, then the wind's blowing and the sun's shining and I'm trying to figure it out, and it's typically down lower, and then I can't see what I'm doing, and I'm taking pictures at different angles and different directions, hoping that the light changes and something magical comes through the connection.
So it's a really wonderful thing. You have a website that you're developing or that's up? Tell everybody about that.
There's a website that is up. It's called freeingthegoddess.net. And
freeingthegoddess.net. And what does that mean to you, freeingthegoddess.net?
we also have feminine energy in us and masculine energy. And I'm trying to just hopefully bring out the combination of the two without focusing on one or the other. And what I'm trying inside my work, which is me, I'm the thing that needs the most work, is bringing that combination out in a way that gently and subtly carries out into the community, the neighborhood, relationship, family.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Hey everyone, I'm now going to transition to a quick song that I'll sing. This is inspired by the poetry of Charlie Patterson.
Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the works your hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the roar Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When through the woods and forest glades I wander and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees. When I look down from lofty mountain grandeur, and I hear that brook, and I feel the gentle breeze, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
We are now standing in front of another artist's work. So Margot Dermody, say just a word about this artist before we talk a little bit about your development of the building itself.
I didn't want to have an art show with just my art. I also wanted other people to be involved. So the group got together with 5 artists, and this is the compilation that came from it. One of the ladies, Nancy, knew the other 3 artists, and she invited them to come. And Margot does this wonderful glass work, and this is also done in Pittsburgh, and she moved here from Tennessee and is having a great time showing her art and expressing herself with these wonderful glass designs here.
And she has a couple over
In
here with
Pittsburgh.
stones as well. So she works with glass, which is really a cool, beautiful thing. So we'll talk a little more about the other artists in this series here in the show. But tell everybody a little bit about your development activities. I was blown away when I first came here because this whole block from street to street, I know you own the building, and the colors that have been painted on the front are fantastic. The lights, I looked up and saw stars that become street lights, and I was blown away, and you told me a little bit about your inspiration for those. Talk first about this building and how you developed it, and tell us then about some of your other development activities.
Well, it's our company is called CP Development, and I don't do that myself. I'm in business with my family, and we also have 35 employees. And a lot of them live in the neighborhood and work in the neighborhood. As with the art that I work with, I shifted my perception about community and working in community. I didn't start out saying I'm going to change a neighborhood or have our company rebuild a neighborhood. It was more of a restoration project. It's not just one building, and that's a combination. One building in one block affects 3 or 4 blocks. If I can fix up one building, it changes the energy, as with art, I started to realize that there's an artistic element to doing any work in community. If I can shift my perception about the community and help to bring back the natural energy that the bricks and the mortar and the trees and the flowers all combine together. And part of that shifting of perception included painting brighter colors on buildings. All of the trees on this one block area we planted, there's about 15 trees. We added the lights, as Jessica said, to add some illumination other than your typical outdoor spotlight.
And where did you get the inspiration for the stars that light up?
I took a trip to Paris, and I saw the lights across the street at night, and it was so interesting that I thought I could try and recreate something like that. I also went to the island of St. Kitts, and that's where I saw bright colors being painted on buildings, and I'm always looking for these creative threads. I created a historic corridor going through this area, and I found out that George Washington and his group during the French and Indian War had to go through this area to get to Fort Pitt. So I thought that certainly was worth celebrating. I read an article in a New York magazine that said if you find something historical in your neighborhood, there's a chance you'll get people to want to move into the area. And the same with color and the same with trees. I read another article that said if there are more trees in a neighborhood, there's less crime. I thought, well, let's go with that.
Trees, light, color, yeah. And art. Talk a little bit about, you said
Yes.
before, you're in the habit of blowing up artwork and making it very large and putting it on the sides of buildings. Talk about that, sculpture. What are you thinking, Charlie, about
Well, as
community art?
far as shifting the perception of an area, it just occurred to me that if you bring in color, if you bring in flowers, if you bring in trees, if you can get art into the neighborhood, then people as they ride through the neighborhood may be able to feel a different energy rather than look at abandoned buildings and junk cars, and they might see something that says, oh, I remember driving through that area and seeing flowers growing or art on buildings or bright colors. I painted one building pink and green, and people would ride by, and it was on a corner location, so they had to stop, and half the people would say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. How can you paint those colors? And half the people would stop and say, wow, look at those wonderful colors. And someone named it the Dr. Seuss house because it has those colors. But what I found interesting is whether they liked it or not, they stopped.
Amen.
And they looked.
Yeah.
So now they have a different perception, whether they know it or not, of something in the neighborhood. And then I started to paint more bright colors on buildings and plant more trees. And it's worked very well. The art itself, I decided I'm not in the art business, and I'm not in opening an art gallery and sitting there and showing my art all day. But if I can get the art out into the neighborhood, it would be interesting. So I started with banners, and the banners started to fade. So I switched to aluminum pieces that withstand the outdoor very well, and put them on buildings all in and around the neighborhood on properties that we own, and it's worked very well. And they, of course, shine in a Pittsburgh winter.
Oh,
When the leaves are gone, the art is still there. And we also, and probably inspired by the art to a certain extent, we started planting flowers in areas and creating flower gardens throughout the neighborhood, and that's worked very well. And now we're looking to add sculptures to the flower gardens so that they'll shine in the winter as well.
how long have you been doing that for, and about how many blocks or so have you renovated, would you guess? Give us some sense for scope.
Well, our business has been doing this for 27 years.
27
And
years.
we started with one building, and after a while, we recognized that, we're making an impression in the neighborhood. And there's also a somewhat selfish element. I was having trouble renting apartments when there was something across the street that was abandoned and run down, and then I tried to make efforts to buy other rundown, abandoned buildings close to the ones we already were working with to improve the neighborhood and also to be able to alleviate people's fears of living in the neighborhood and helping them feel comfortable moving back into the area and into buildings that were previously empty and abandoned. And we've fixed up, brought back to life about 160 buildings and over 500 apartments.
Wow.
And as part of that process, we also bought buildings like the one we're standing in, where there are apartments upstairs and there's a commercial space down below. So we've also brought between 28 and 32 small businesses back into the borough and into mostly into Wilkinsburg, some in Swissvale and Edgewood and Regent Square.
So, community development, economic development, the arts, creative entrepreneurship, this is all wrapped in to your life and your legacy and your gift back. You've developed your gifts and you're using them in service, and I applaud you. I'm a fan. And I love your poetry and how you combine it with your art and with community. So I just want to thank you for inviting the music to come in. And I look forward to many more collaborations. And this is just the beginning of our creative friendship. So I want to just say to everybody in TV land out there, come on over to South Trenton Avenue. It is so cool. And the tenants in this block are all cool too. There's a coffee shop right next door with really wonderful baked goods. Just mention the coffee shop that's here. Tell everybody a little bit about this. They can stop and get a coffee when they visit your gallery.
Yes, the coffee shop is called BB and Burr, and they've done a great job. They remodeled that space on their own, and they've been open for about a year, and they're doing very well. And there are also 3 other artists in spaces we have that are doing well. There's a ceramicist and a screen printer, a jeweler, and we have Wilkinsburg's only bicycle shop. He moved in about a year and a half ago, and he's doing well also.
You're creating a creative cluster, really, here. Hey, everybody. I hope you are as inspired as I am. I'm going to transition to a quick song that all of this has inspired.
I believe in the sun, even when it isn't shining. I believe in love, even when there's no one there. And I believe in God. I believe in God, even when God is silent. I believe in miracles. I believe in light. I believe we can always find a way. I believe that nothing is impossible. I believe that nothing is impossible. That all things are possible with God. Love no holding on. Love no strings, love no hands, just touch through song. I leave, and yet my heart won't go. I'll always love you so. Love no strings, love no hands, no holding on. Love no strings, love no hands, just touch through song. A warm hello and a glass of wine. Wish for joy through time. What is this fire of love? Freedom fierce, comfort soft. Is it the thrill of wind against your skin? Is it the softness of the teacher's touch? Love, love no strings, love no hands, no holding on. Love, love no strings, love no hands, just touch the song. I dream of a world like this, free to flow in bliss.
Hi, when we put this show together, we have 5 artists from the Pittsburgh area, and this is a conglomeration of one piece of art from each artist. Mr. Fall is an art teacher, and he does his paintings like this, oil. This is Mr. Bowden, and he does watercolors. And this is a selection of bridges that he brought to this show. Above that is one of my art pieces. That's a flower from Arizona. And we have the glass work here, which was done by Margot. And Nancy does her work, and that's a representation of what she does. And the gallery, we had the show, and we had it on a Saturday. And then we also have one of the artists has her contact information. If someone would like to have a private viewing and look at the art, that's certainly possible also.
Last gulp of the Talking Machine green tea, and that's all we have for our show. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for our next By Request.
We may never meet again on the bumpy road to